6 recapping every game that went down around the NFL in Week 6. Going with the 49ers and Seahawks. We had the absolute bludgeon that the Lions committed against the Cowboys. We had big trades with Amari Cooper and Devontae Adams on the move. We'll end the show, of course, with the famous segment, the worst top 5. But let's get into the game of the week. The week that we had circled on our calendars since last year when the infamous Dan Skipper did not report as eligible. Saw the video, reported as eligible. Lions had that on their calendar for the last pretty much full year. And they finally got their revenge this Sunday on Jerry Jones' birthday, giving him the worst loss at home in Dallas Cowboys Jerry Jones history. Lions 47-9, annihilating the lowly, dare I say, Dallas Cowboys. And I think for this segment, you have your cowboy hat. When I pop this bitch on myself, shit. Dallas Cowboys. Yeah. How about them Cowboys? They are now 0-3 at home this year, and they scored a measly 9 points. Tell me this wasn't the greatest game of the week to watch in real time.
This was easily the greatest game this week, and people were talking about the Cowboys coming into this game, and I've seen people around the league mentioning contenders, whether it is Kirk Herbstreit on Thursday Night Football, whether it's dorks on FS1 or ESPN that lose their minds over, oh my God, Sam Darnold and Brock Purdy, and they just keep getting distracted with other teams besides the Detroit Lions, even though under Dan Campbell, the Detroit Lions have gotten better every single year, and people are asking like, 1 + 1 does not equal 2. They're acting like 2 + 2 does not equal 4. And then before this game, I gave an entire motivational speech about how the Detroit Lions were going to come out and absolutely destroy this game. It was not going to be close. They wanted to break the Cowboys spirit. They had this game circled on their calendar. And I called this game and I said they're going to pull out all of the stops to make sure that the refs will not be involved. And I've been saying that the Lions have the best playbook of any team in the NFL. And the biggest part for Detroit this year was Ben Johnson coming back. It was Dan Campbell giving those motivational speeches. I have not stopped believing in this team, and this team did not disappoint. And one thing I have also been saying is that coming into the year, the Cowboys are going to be a lot worse than people think they are, because when you come into the season without a running game, that is, I don't know, a huge problem, because that's half of playing offense in the NFL, you know, is running the football. And they're like, I don't know, Ezekiel Elliott, let's bring him back, and then we'll have Rico Dordal on our team, another aging offensive line, and I had to listen to these people defend Dak Prescott over and over again, and every time it's like, but look at the numbers with Dak. He's always top 5 in passing yards, and he always has great stats. I'm like, okay, yeah, that's fantastic. If you want Dak Prescott to put up great numbers in garbage time and top 5 in yards is enough for you when you repeatedly get embarrassed, have fun with that, because now you're in hot water, because the Cowboys are so dumb that Mike McCarthy, of all people, showed exactly why Green Bay got rid of him and exactly why they hired Matt LaFleur. They hired Matt LaFleur because everything on their offense looks interesting. Everyone is always in motion. It's creative. He keeps the defense on their heels, where Mike McCarthy, a little bit crusty, a little bit of a whoa-hoo, clap, clap, I'll give you a donut type coach. And the offense just looks boring, does not elevate the team at all. And then you bring this guy back after his former team absolutely annihilates you as, I don't know, the 7th seed? The 7th seed, the worst possible team coming into the NFC playoffs, destroys you at home. CeeDee Lamb is crying on the sideline, and then Jerry Jones goes on the radio and he's like, well, find someone else to blame. This ain't my fault. I'm just the 82-year-old owner that decided to make Dak Prescott the highest paid quarterback in the NFL this year. What do you want me to do? Now we have Dak and we have CeeDee Lamb and no one else on your team. You got rid of everyone's favorite coach there. He's now on the Commanders. They look way better than you, and I said this team was probably going to have a losing record and fall off this season, and the Detroit Lions did a absolute number on the Cowboys, and this wasn't even San Francisco versus Dallas Cowboys bad. What the Detroit Lions did was pull out a scoregami. They got Scott Hansen a little bit too excited in certain places that we didn't want to see on TV, and he's like, oh my god, 47-9, we've never seen this before. It's a new scoregami. The Detroit Lions have pulled off yet another miracle in this game, on top of the flea flicker. And I could go on and on and on, but I think everyone here gets the point, and we'll get to many more.
We'll get to so much more. First of all, after this game, after literally the worst home blowout in the history of the Jerry Jones era Dallas Cowboys, he goes on the radio station. They question him about his offseason moves. My first question of that was, what offensive moves? What offseason moves? His offseason moves was bringing back the dead corpse of Ezekiel Elliott and dragging him out on the field. That was the big move. And then overpaying for Dak Prescott. Congratulations. He gets questioned on that, as any normal Cowboys, journalist would. And he says, you got to be smoking something. No, Jerry, what are you smoking? Because give me 10 of that. I'll be off the fence. Whatever you're on, I'll take that. And then he goes, your job isn't letting me go over the reasons that I did something. It's not your job. I'll get someone else to ask these questions. Gets all defensive about his offseason moves. My big takeaway from that was, what offseason moves? You didn't make any. Let's get to your quarterback that you're paying $200 million plus to. You want to talk about Jared Goff on the other side, who had a perfect game last week. Shoot the man. Didn't have a perfect QBR. Didn't have a 100% completion rating. But he had 80%. He had 150 QBR. Meanwhile, your quarterback, 0 touchdowns, 2 picks. You like that? I certainly don't. Oh, he also got 1 yard of rushing on the other side. So let's not bury him too much. 9 points for your Dallas Cowboys at home in the beautiful Jerry world. What a pathetic showing. They shut down CeeDee Lamb to some extent. And then when you have the other sideline, you have the Detroit Lions, who are trying as hard as they possibly can to get an offensive lineman into the end zone. More than any team I've ever seen in my life. Whether it's Stan Skipper, whether it's Penei Sewell, whether it's Frank Ragnow, Taylor Decker, the list goes on. They're trying to get every single offensive lineman, every tackle, every center. Hell, they even had defensive players out there last game. They were trying everything in the playbook just to rub it into the wounds of the Dallas Cowboys after the bullshit loss that they endured in Week 17 last year, which ultimately cost them the 1 seed. We talked about the Lions and their redemption arc and how they're always trying to prove it moving forward. Well, I think they did. I mean, almost 200 yards on the ground. They picked off Dak Prescott twice, and even when Cooper Rush came in, the godly, bearded Cooper Rush, he had an interception as well. On their way to the exits, Cowboys fans were met with dead corpse Dak Prescott jerseys walking around the stadium. They had Lions fans hitting the gritty on the poor Dallas Cowboys fans in complete disarray because yet another Dallas Cowboys disappointment. Beautiful to watch.
Yeah. It's another Dallas Cowboys disappointment, but also, what is this trend that is starting with Dak Prescott? I don't know if you've noticed it, but Dak's new favorite hobby is, you know what? Let's put a really good drive together. Let's get down into the red zone, and then I'm going to throw it to absolutely nobody except for a defender in the end zone in back-to-back weeks. Like, this is the second game in a row that the Cowboys drive all the way down to the end zone. This is before the game gets out of hand, and right on cue, Dak Prescott throws the worst possible interception. Instead of walking away with points, he just throws it to the defender. And this has happened in back-to-back weeks with Dak Prescott. He did it versus the Steelers twice, I believe, where they turned it over in the red zone. And then first drive, everything's looking okay for the Cowboys. Maybe it'll actually be a competitive game. Maybe I was wrong about the Cowboys. Nope. He just goes ahead and then throws it straight to a defender in the end zone. And yes, I agree with you also. I have never been impressed by Dak Prescott. How can you be impressed by a guy who hasn't made it past the divisional round? How can you be impressed by a guy who doesn't play any great football until his team's way too far behind and it doesn't even matter anymore? I mean, with this team, it's like you look in more disarray than the Eagles, and then after the game, Mike McCarthy's like, I'm not concerned about this. This gives me an opportunity to coach our team. I'm like, you couldn't have used the Green Bay Packers game for that motivation. You couldn't have used the San Francisco 49ers game for that motivation. You're like, no, I'm going to wait until this season. How many more blowouts are we going to get before Mike McCarthy gets concerned? Like, I don't know. Maybe I should start worrying a little bit, especially when we haven't won a game at home this year.
My thing that kills me about that line is like, maybe I should start coaching. What do you mean you should start coaching? You should be coaching every game. This shouldn't be because of a Lions game where you get embarrassed at home. Worst since the 80s. Worst since before DVDs were a thing. This is when they're like, I think I should start coaching. No, you should have started coaching last year. You should have started when you got hired. You shouldn't just start now. I digress. Nonetheless, the Cowboys, one thing that we talked about beginning of the season, we're like, wait a minute. Your number one running back last year was Tony Pollard. You let him walk to Tennessee. And your replacement was who exactly? Because Rico Doyle, not the dude. No offense to Rico Doyle. Not the answer at running back. And then, again, Ezekiel Elliott, who I remember very fondly on the Cowboys of 2016 when I was in high school, by the way. I remember that.
The Falcons were melting down in the Super Bowl that year. Matt Ryan was winning MVPs.
Yes, 2016. You know how long ago 2016 was? How much of a simpler time 2016 was? Yes, we remember fondly. Those times were great. I also remember the Zeke who sucked on the Patriots, who was a backup running back on the New England Patriots last year. For context, the Patriots last year were 4-13. They were the third worst team according to the draft order last year. They were pathetic. Their offense was literally 31st in the NFL in just about every statistical category because a team like the Panthers exist. They bring him back. And surprise, surprise, every year his rushing yards have declined. Every year his yards per carries have declined. His touchdowns have declined. But nope, we're bringing him back to that great offensive line. Oh, wait, we lost a bunch of players on the offensive line, so our offensive line isn't even good anymore. Bad offensive line. You bring back a guy who is literally, how old is this motherfucker? 32? He's going to be 30 this year. But he's an old 30. He's had a lot of hits. He had 300-plus carries for 7 consecutive seasons. That's a lot of carries for a guy. Bringing him back as if he's the solution for your team is pathetic. And then not only that, your receiver core is just CeeDee Lamb. You have Turpin, who I don't think is all that great. You have Jalen Tolbert. Is he the answer at number 2? God, no. And not only that, the other thing that kills me about this Cowboys team going on, like if we're going to just wear on the Cowboys for the next 20 minutes, which we definitely could, Devontae Adams just got traded for a second-round pick. Maybe a third-round pick, could be a second-round pick. Okay?
Third.
Yeah. And then Amari Cooper, same idea. You get a third-round pick, and he says he's too expensive. Keep in mind that the Amari Cooper trade, the Bills are paying him $800,000 this year to be their number one. You're telling me Amari Cooper doesn't get reunited with the Cowboys, that team doesn't get better? They were amazing. They were a good team when they had Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and now they can't afford him. The richest sports franchise in all of sports, richer than the Lakers and Yankees and Manchester United. That team cannot afford Devontae or Amari Cooper. That's a joke. They write their own punchlines at this point. The Dallas Cowboys do, and it's impeccable to watch.
Yeah, and I said before the season, I'm like, I don't think Jerry Jones actually cares about winning, and I don't know how their fans can live with it. And I talked to a Cowboys fans today, and he was like, I want the Cowboys to lose every other game from here on out, and Jerry Jones to have to live with the awful decisions that he has made all season long. And he's like, I just want the Cowboys to have to live with that, and then we'll actually get a high draft pick. We'll be able to move off of Dak Prescott. And, you know, they probably won't move off of Dak Prescott because who is going to take on that contract exactly for Dak? Is it going to be a team like the Carolina Panthers? Is Cleveland going to be like, Let's move off Deshaun Watson for Dak Prescott. It's like, is that how it's gonna work? Or are you gonna still have to have Dak Prescott there, and then you'll be able to sit a rookie behind him, and then he'll potentially take his job? But we've seen how emotional Jerry Jones was with Jason Garrett and how long he stuck around. Like, how long is Mike McCarthy gonna stick around? Because if he isn't fired yet, by now, like after this game, he's not getting fired the rest of the season. They're going to have like a close loss where the Cowboys look pretty good. And then Jerry Jones is going to be like, well, I guess it's time to move on from Mike McCarthy. But apparently Jerry Jones is like, no, everything is great with my team. And if you don't like the Dallas Cowboys, you are smoking something and you're hanging out with Aaron Rodgers and you're making trips to Europe or New Zealand, wherever he's going, South America. He's like, that's what he thinks you're on there. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're smoking ayahuasca. But I want to talk about the Lions for a second because obviously we're high on the Lions and we know that they're the best team in the NFC. But I just want to say, like, whether it was Jahmyr Gibbs, whether it was Craig Reynolds, whether it was David Montgomery, who ran all over the Cowboys this game, but also on the other side, defensively. I mean, you lose Aiden Hutchinson, which is a huge loss, don't get me wrong. But at the end of the day, Elaine McNeil, he stepped up when it mattered. Malcolm Rodrigo made some great plays. Jack Campbell is coming into his own as a linebacker. And then Brian freaking Branch, a fifth-round rookie last year. He was excellent for him last year. And this year, he has not one but 2 interceptions in the red zone. Exceptional. So the Lions, like, I think the big weakness with them last year, a lot of people would say, was their defense. And I don't think their defense was as bad as they said last year. Definitely got better in the second half. But this year, their defense looks rejuvenated. They look excited. And the rookies that they hit on last year are doing that much better. And then the guys that they brought in, like the Carlton Davises of the world, they're looking nice too. So, I mean, the Lions defense, along with that offense, with some of the play calls that they made, the Sam Laporta flea flicker, like, good God. God helps anybody who runs into their path.
Yeah, no. And I said coming into the season that there is no reason that the Detroit Lions won't get better because of players like Brian Barnes last season, who it took him 3 years and then he got his first interception. He really found his footing last year. And this is a team that really hasn't missed on any draft picks. And this is a team that is still uber young, to put it lightly, because you still have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's still coming into his prime, who is still the most underrated wide receiver in the league. You still have Jameson Williams, who hasn't got his opportunity to shine, but he will show people this season why he could be one of the best wide receiver 2s in the league, not named T. Higgins. And then you have Sam Laporta, who is just starting to touch his potential. I mean, he's a guy who last year was a dominant tight end, and now in year 2, where tight ends really don't pop until year 3, 4, or 5, like, and then you still have the players like Khalif Raymond who pop up out of nowhere, like, and the defense did get better. Aaron Glenn's been coaching this team, and you still have Dan Campbell as that head coach, and they clearly love Dan Campbell because Dan Campbell wrote down the game well this time, and he's like, all right, Jared Goff, you get the game ball, and then Jared Goff's like, no way, no how, this goes to our amazing head coach, and they're still rallying around that man. That collapse in San Francisco didn't shake this Detroit Lions team. They're like, you know what? Last season, we learned a lot in the playoffs last year. We had an opportunity to get to the playoffs where the year before we missed the playoffs, but you know what we did? We sent Aaron Rodgers packing out of the division and beat him for the first time in his career, not once, but twice. And then we also had the greatest season in Detroit Lions history last year. Yeah, we're the team who did that. We were 13-4 because we actually reported and we actually got the touchdown to beat the Detroit Lions, even though the record said 12-5. And we got to the conference championship as one of the most cursed franchises in the NFL. But Dan Campbell made the walk to Tibet. He walked up the mountain. He talked to the monks there. What do I need to do to lift the curse, man? And they said, you need caffeine. And you need to dedicate yourself to this team every day and not miss a draft pick. And the Detroit Lions, again, look better than they were last year. They look like they took another step forward, and they do have the best offensive playbook in the league this year. So I'm excited to see them continue to grow. And I've also been saying people are catching on to it this week of all weeks. I said Last season, we had something happen for the first time in NFL history before the season, which was every single team in the AFC North had a winning record. I'm like, you know what? I think that's going to happen this year again in the NFC North, because I think the Green Bay Packers are still going to be really good with Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur proving himself as a really good head coach. I think the Vikings are one of the most underrated good bad teams here, and I still am in love with their head coach there, and I think with their weapons, they did get better at running back, especially Jordan Addison in year 2. And then B-Flow, I think the defense was starting to come along, and they're showing that they're one of the better defenses in the NFL this year. And I was like, the Chicago Bears may not be as good as those teams, but what they do have is an easy record, and the Chicago Bears are doing what they should, which is blowing out bad teams. And we can go to that London game if you want, because I've also been saying Cole Kmet's the most underrated tight end in the NFL. The luxury, 2 tight ends in that, or 2 touchdowns in that game. I'm getting carried away here, but everything is coming full circle with what we said before the preseason and speaking it into existence. Cole Kmet getting 2 touchdowns in that game. Caleb Williams finding Keenan Allen in that game. Him coming back looks like a huge addition just for him being that safety blanket. Then you have the explosiveness of Roma Dunze, and then you have the explosiveness of DJ Moore on that team. And then either one of those on any given day is your 3rd wide receiver. That's absolutely crazy. Call him gay if you want. Call him zesty. Call Caleb Williams whatever you want just because he paints his nails. But that guy can throw a football here. And then if D Swift decides to show up, and now their number 2 running back is showing signs of being a solid red zone 3rd down option when you need to get some yards, you need those tough yardages, he's going to go out there and get it. And guess what? That defense is still the same Chicago Bears defense that came alive last year. This whole division, like, no one wants to mess with the North this year. And I'm not talking about the AFC North this year, even though they've been pretty decent, but not as good as last year. No one wants to smoke now. And then people are just like, is it time to have a conversation? Like, we have been having this conversation. Where were you this offseason? You should have been at the BRICKYARD, because we have this document. It's in here.
Right up.
It's
I'm gonna
true.
take this cowboy hat off to talk about Mr. Caleb. Because I was like, you know what? This is the game that we finally say Caleb Williams has arrived. I'm like, you know what? I don't care that it's in London. I don't care if this is a home game for the Jaguars. So we're going to stay in London this week and have spotted dick and crumpets and crinkets or whatever the fuck they have in London. Who cares? Finally, last game against the Panthers, he finally connected on those deep balls that we've been saying. He's been just waiting to get the rhythm down. He gets the rhythm down. Cole Kmet, 2 touchdowns, 70 yards. Absolute luxury. Keenan Allen came back. He played exceptional. We even had a Mercedes Lewis sighting, for fuck's sake. Mercedes Lewis, the oldest player in the NFL at this point. The Bears did what the Bears would. Caleb Williams looked exceptional. Only missed on 6 passes total. 23 of 29, 4 touchdowns. I'll take that. And then the lowly Jaguars. I mean, how do you lose at home like this? I understand this isn't technically a home game, but for Jacksonville, they practically live in London half of the year. How do you lose this game? I understand you guys suck, but this wasn't even a Trevor Lawrence problem this time. Trevor Lawrence hasn't played great this year, I don't think, but when you get your number 1 running back, the guy that you spent a first-round pick on, when he, in 3 carries, runs backwards for -1, that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help the Jaguars. It doesn't help Travis Etienne. Where in the world is Travis Etienne? I don't know, because last time I checked, he was supposed to be a first-round pick. He was supposed to be in the likes of the Breece Halls of the world. He's not. Travis Etienne fucking sucks. And now it's Dearness Johnson, who we remember being a legend in Cleveland when Nick Chubb went down. Tank Bigsby is now starting to get some carries for you. But good God, when your offense is relying on Evan Ingram to be your main pulse, you're in trouble. No offense to Evan Ingram. But good God, this Jags team, I could go on about how bad they are. But I think this is more of an applause to Caleb Williams and the Bears and them stepping up, getting a couple of easy wins under their belt, and now it looks like they're ready to rock and start to compete in that division.
Dude, like, people make fun of Caleb Williams for painting his nails. They make fun of him for the way he dresses here, and NFL fans can be like this. But why is no one talking about like the moment I had the massive cause to pause with Trevor Lawrence where I'm like, stop sign, hold up, what is he doing? Is they were doing media day and they were taking the pictures and doing the team promos, and what do we see? Someone with a fan laying down so Trevor Lawrence's hair is flowing there. And no one got mad. No one made fun of him for that. Like, oh yeah, Caleb Williams paints his nails, but Trevor Lawrence has a dude blowing his hair, laying down on the ground, and somehow, okay, no one cares about that at all. No one's like, is that your franchise quarterback? Or is that guy trying to be a model there where you make fun of Caleb Williams for crying after a game he lost with his parents and showing some raw emotion on the field? People make fun of him. That's not a real franchise quarterback. That's not who I want to be my quarterback. He's going to be a massive bust. He's not Patrick Mahomes. But then you have Trevor Lawrence, who it doesn't worry you when he's like, okay, guys, we got a lot of things to do out there today, but we need to get it done. And, we just got to like play hard, and if we play like better, then I think we can do it. Like, okay, let's play better. All right, break. Like, that's less of a concern for you than Caleb Williams. For now, Trevor Lawrence is turning into Daniel Jones with long hair.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons to pause. First of all, I can forgive the first year, and we've talked about this before. The Urban Meyer year doesn't count. I don't expect any rookie quarterback to be exceptional the first year, especially when you have the worst head coach of all time in Urban Meyer. But, like, from there, your next season, you play, like, fine. You're, like, arguably a top 10 quarterback. And you've since regressed with Doug Peterson, a guy that was once anointed as a top 5 head coach in the league to some people. And they've continuously gotten worse since then. You've gotten more interceptions. You've had more fumbles. You have a team that can barely be 500, if that. The peak of his powers, he was 7-4, and ever since then, he has won one game. He's won one game since he was 7-4. Give me a break. I am off the Trevor Lawrence bandwagon. I think they should have waited to pay him until this year because they might not have even paid him at this point because of how bad they've been. They're 1-5. They're pathetic, and I don't believe in him anymore. I mean, it's great that he was great in college at Clemson when they have everybody on that roster going pro, but turns out when you don't have the best wide receiver and the best running back and the best offensive line, the best head coach in college football, great defense, turns out it's not quite the same when you go to Jacksonville, who is perpetually terrible, and try to make Urban Meyer Urban Meyerville with Shad Khan, Mario villain owner, at the helm. Like, surprise, surprise, you suck. So I'm off the Trevor Lawrence bandwagon, and I'm riding the Caleb Williams train until the day I die.
Oh, yeah. You're riding his train? Is that what's going on?
Hey. Keep it PG for the audience here.
Hey, if it's... They don't understand if it's PG. Have you ever watched a Pixar movie, sir?
Yes.
All of those movies are PG. Some of the jokes in those movies you go back and rewatch. Did you understand them? No, you didn't.
But the Jaguars are pathetic. They're going to stay in London and face off against the Patriots. Should we talk about the premiere of Drake May?
Yeah.
The Texans. Sure.
Let's talk about it.
Sure. So the Texans, they do what we predicted them to do. They beat up on the Patriots to no surprise. But Drake May, first start, played decently enough. 3 touchdowns, made a little bit of plays with his legs. I don't think he looked that bad. He threw some interceptions, and there's some things to work on. But for a guy who has no offensive line, no running game, and wide receivers who cannot catch the football, two very important things in the NFL, I think he looked pretty decent. Gives me some hope for the Patriots. Not this year, but in the future, maybe. We'll see. First game against the Texans, not an easy play. I liked what I saw. I think he played okay.
Yeah, I definitely think if you're a Patriots fans, that's an improvement from Jacoby Brissett. But my question is, why couldn't we have seen this versus Miami, where he would have had a chance to go out there and shine and actually get a win? And Gerard Mayo was talking about how we let, Drake May down here. I'm like, yeah, you let him down this offseason when you decided not to get any wide receivers. You let him down this offseason when you decided not to fix your offensive line. You let him down this offseason when you decided to roll into the season with Ramondre Stevenson still coming off a bad injury, and then him with Antonio Gibson as his backup, and then Hunter Henry as his number one receiver. And then Patriots fans, they'll tell you receivers on your teams, and I hate to break it to you, but just because a receiver is on your team doesn't mean he's good. And Patriots fans have this tendency to do like, oh yeah, we have Kayshon Boutte on our team. Like, yeah, you're right, he is on your team. But in all seriousness, I did think Drake May gave this team some hope. So I think when you have a new head coach, new offensive coordinator, a better offensive line, he'll actually be a good quarterback in this league, and he will be better than Jacoby Brissett. And I could see him struggling a little bit, having some interceptions, but he definitely looked more polished than someone like a Will Levis. And with a rookie quarterback like him, all I want to see is he can push the ball down the field and that he's throwing touchdowns. Like, I feel like we see quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence come into the league and they struggle to have games with multiple touchdowns. But the fact that he was able to throw 3 touchdowns in the game and then make it close at one point where you didn't know it was close, but he was able to move the ball here. Interceptions are definitely forgivable, especially against this Houston Texans defense. Like, okay, I liked it. Like, I definitely like Drake May, and I give them a decent shot to go out there and upset the Jacksonville Jaguars at home in London. Like,
Yeah.
you're not there for the women. You're not there for the food. So,
Yeah, and I mean, the Texans are not an easy team to face, especially with that offensive line. You have Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson breathing down your neck, and then your non-existent receivers, the Demario Davises or Demario Douglases and the Kendrick Bournes of the world, getting double covered. Like, it's not a good team to start off your career against. And I think holding his own for the most part. He had a big run in this game. He looked clean in the pocket, delivered the ball, quick decision making, like everything you would want a quarterback to have, especially as a rookie. I was impressed with. So I liked overall what I saw with Drake May. And then the Texans on the other side, like Joe Mixon comes back, 100-yard game. They do what they should do against a team like the Patriots. They take care of business, win by multiple scores. So this is a game that on both sides, you leave the game happy. Joe Mixon's back. I think Joe Mixon does rejuvenate them a little bit. We even had a big run by none other than the fridge, Dameon Pierce. So if you guys remember Dameon Pierce, 2 years ago, Dameon Pierce looked like the next insert great running back. And then he got injured, got banged up. Last year he came back, was super inefficient. And now he comes back. It's a fat run against the Patriots, and maybe he'll be a nice little, third down back, goal line guy potentially. Who knows? Maybe there's more to come with Dameon Pierce. I hope so for the Texans' sake, because when they have a good running game going, this team is disgusting. And C.J. Stroud doesn't make a lot of mistakes, and then obviously the receivers are second to none.
yeah, it's like Eminem said, running backs on Sunday, Monday. Sometimes they come, they go. And maybe Dameon Pierce will come back here for the Houston Texans. And maybe it was an injury issue with him last year and just an issue with the offensive line. You never know what these players are dealing with. But Dameon Pierce did prove in his rookie year that he did have something there, and maybe having Joe Mixon to help him work out. Maybe having someone to help him push there. And he's someone who, he's on a rookie contract here. He's in year 3, so he needs to put together 2 good years if he wants to get a paycheck. So that is something to look at with Dameon Pierce, where you can have a good rookie year and a slump in year 2. But if you want to get paid, you just need a good flash at the end of the season where another team is going to want to go out there and pick you up. So I could definitely see Dameon Pierce being that next level added to the Houston Texans offense. And I really like seeing the Houston Texans offense start to move the ball without Nico Collins, where it felt like before this game, the offense was a little too Nico Collins reliant, and it seemed like C.J. Stroud was fixating on him a little bit too much. And there's nothing wrong with that, because Nico Collins is a hell of a receiver and a great guy to want to target all the time. However, you do need to start getting Tank Dell in the swing of things and Stephon Diggs in the swing of things. So I actually think in the long run, you never want to see Nico Collins get injured, and hopefully he has a recovery and comes back stronger than he was. But I think this could inevitably help the Houston Texans offense get a little bit more continuity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me. I think it was 2 years ago when Jamar Chase was down for a couple of weeks. Then you saw players like T. Higgins step up. You saw the Trent Irwins of the world step up. At the time, I believe Hayden Hurst was on that team. Hayden Hurst stepped up. And you see
Yep.
those guys on the other side who, I think Nico Collins is good for like 25 or 30% of the targets. When he's gone, that's when you see Stephon Diggs get fed. You see Tank Dell get fed. You saw Dalton Schultz get some action as well. Like, you see a lot of action with those teams when they lose their top guy. So now, when Nico Collins comes back, all these guys are in rhythm, and he gets added to it. Like, that's going to be what could potentially put them over a team like the Ravens. Or if the Chiefs keep succumbing to injuries, maybe that's when they beat the Chiefs when they're vulnerable. It's like situations like that where they might be able to strike a team when they're vulnerable. And I think they're definitely talented enough to do so.
Yeah, I think it's a good conversation with the Texans because this is also a team where week 6 strikes and then all of a sudden they ramp up. You're like, were you just waiting? Were you just sitting there lurking in the weeds, waiting till November to turn it up? And I think that will be the case for this team because with like the history of how you kind of see these teams like pop a little bit in their first year and then really start to take that next step. I do think we'll see that, especially with Bobby Slowick there. CJ Stroud is still getting better. I mean, this is his second year in the NFL, and I don't think people like really comprehend that, like, because he already seems like a veteran, and it already feels like CJ Stroud has been in the NFL for fucking 10 years at this point, and now we're seeing him kind of almost just be that stable quarterback. He has like this veteran presence already, but it's still only year 2 where we don't really see quarterbacks excel to the highest level until year 3. Joe Burrow had that amazing run in year 2, but like Joe Burrow is also someone who is getting better here. CJ Stroud is also a really young quarterback in the NFL, so he's going to continue to get better. The defense is going to continue to get better, especially in November and December. So I do think this Texans team is still a little bit slept on. I'm interested to see how they match up with the Baltimore Ravens. Think that's going to be a good battle, but I think that Bills game was a good test, and then you come out and blow out the Patriots. Like, okay, now we're starting to show the right signs here.
Yeah, and you took care of business against both of them. I think the sky is the limit for them. So they're exciting here. Should we get over? I mean, we're talking about the AFC South, so we might as well talk about Colts and Titans while we're here. We got Colts taking care of business against the Titans. Good game, come from behind win. We got Joe Flacco doing Joe Flacco things. Josh Downs had a big game for them. And then Will Levis continues on his Linsanity meme streak as well, going the little finger gun action here.
The Spider-Man one this week.
Yeah, I don't. He, like we said, we've said this before. Will Levis is the best, worst quarterback to watch in the NFL. He is eyes glued to the television, no matter who he plays. I want every single game for him to be on Thursday night at this point. Just a classic Thursday night game. Is he very good? No. But is he fun to watch? Absolutely. I can't get my eyes off the screen when I see Will Levis. Now, is he going to stay here? Is he going to be the starter for like the foreseeable future? I don't know.
Hope so.
I hope so too, but I don't know. So far, he's got 7 picks already, and it's week 6.
How many
And
years did Jameis get? Like,
Jameis got 4? I think Jameis had 4 years. So, I mean, it's not that they're that far off from each other. I don't know. I'm here for it. I feel bad for DeAndre Hopkins, though. This guy's rotting in Tennessee. We need to get this man out of here. We just saw Amari get freed from Cleveland. We just saw Devontae get freed from Oakland. Can we see DeAndre get freed from Tennessee? They're 1-4. Send him to a good team. The Chiefs could use him. Send him to the Chiefs.
back to Houston.
Send him back. What a reunion that could be. Trade him for a washed running back to fulfill the circle. Please. I want to see it. But yeah, nonetheless, the Colts, Joe Flacco played a solid game overall. This was out Jonathan Taylor as well. And they came back from behind, and they won the game. So, good game for the Colts. They're now 3-3. And the Titans are kind of what we expected them to be overall.
Yeah, and You know, we just talked about Nico Collins being out. We just talked about when Jamar Chase was out for the Bengals there. But, you know, Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor being out for this Colts team, we are really getting to see how good Josh Downs is. And then we're also getting to see how good Alec Pierce is because Joe Flacco had a throw and he knew he missed it. There's just a wide open pass to Alec Pierce that Joe Flacco should have hit. He knew he should have hit it. And then Josh Downs is a player that was a really good rookie last year, and I was waiting for him to kind of take the next step. Had him, and he's been sitting on my bench for a little bit here, but he's really been that solid third receiver for a team, and he's been an electric player. He's been a force offensively, and this Colts offense has looked good here with Joe Flacco, and I could see Joe Flacco starting until it doesn't work anymore, until he has a couple games in a row where like, okay, now it's time to put Anthony Richardson in. But I think also for Anthony Richardson, this was a guy coming into the season that we thought was still a project. He was the most raw quarterback coming into the draft with the most upside potential with the athleticism there, but still very much a project here, and teams knew that. And when you have Gardner Minshew doesn't really have that cachet as someone like Joe Flacco was, where Joe Flacco has won a Super Bowl. Joe Flacco was comeback player of the year last year. Joe Flacco has played well for this team and can compete against good NFL teams in the league this year. And the Colts defense, I feel like, has taken a step forward this year. So I feel like it's a good time to put Anthony Richardson on the bench for a little bit, get him with the trainer, have him get his body right, and then also learn from someone like Joe Flacco. And I think that'll also help him. So that's my bet on the Colts. But Will Levis, he thinks he can make every single throw. And it feels like watching Nemo try and touch the butt in Finding Nemo. It's like, you think you can do these things, but you just can't, Will. Stop putting mayonnaise in your coffee. Stop releasing sex tapes on OnlyFans. Stop trying to fit it between two defenders every time. Just because you're almost being sacked doesn't translate to, should I throw it up in the air 60 yards down the field when I can't see the defender? No, Will, it doesn't. But it's entertaining as hell, and you can make some really great throws, but you don't need to try and make every single throw. It's like trying to watch Josh Allen without athleticism.
You know what it reminds me of? You mentioned the Finding Nemo bit. Have you ever seen the Babadook, the horror movie Babadook? It reminds me of when she's in the car with the child who's going schizophrenic, and she's like, "Why can't you just be normal?" That's Will Levis. We watch Will Levis play. I'm like, can you just be normal? Because you have the arm accuracy. You have the arm for it. Like, you can be good. I feel it. Like, the right system, and Will Levis, if he could just change his brain chemistry, he would be so good. He's got the arm. He can make every throw.
Yeah.
The problem is this. He just doesn't. Or there's a throw that any other quarterback would be like, probably shouldn't make that throw. That could be a really high-risk play. But this guy, you should really be looking at his gambling history, because I swear to God, before he joined the NFL, he must have put his whole life savings on a parlay. Must have cashed or something. He must have been fine. But at the end of the day, this man is a gambling man. I think rather than the Hellman's sponsorship or whatever Miracle Whip sponsorship he has, he should get a sponsorship with DraftKings. This man loves to gamble on every play, and that's why he leads the league in turnovers at this point. Because
we love it though. I am a fan for not for the right reason, but how can you not love watching Will Levis play?
It's disaster porn every single game. But you know what? I don't care if they go 1-16. I'm gonna watch every game, eyes glued to the television.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
It's literally like watching Tommy Wiseau direct a movie. Absolute electric stuff. Oh,
It's
hi
electric.
pick.
Oh, hi interception. Yeah,
literally.
This game, what a nightmare. But fun to watch nonetheless. Now,
Great game.
Now we pivot to, might as well talk about the Thursday night game. Get back into the order here. 49ers got back into the rhythm here. Brock Purdy played a good football game. Geno Smith, not his best game of the year so far. Got the run shut down by the Seahawks. But yeah, the 49ers, 36-24. Seahawks almost came back at one point, but ultimately they shut the door, and now the 49ers are back to 3-3. Seahawks, who started off 3-0, have lost the last 3 games. Is this more on the 49ers being back, or do you think the Seahawks maybe came back down to earth a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, the Seahawks did this before. Like, remember the year where we had 3-0 teams, and it was like Seattle, the Panthers with Sam Darnold, and I forget what other team it was. There's another bad team. But yeah, Seattle has this tendency to start out hot and then just kind of fall off throughout the season. Seemed like it was a little bit of new coach magic here. And then this is also a team that just hasn't really been able to get over the 49ers hump this year. And Kyle Shanahan has had their number over the past season. I don't think Geno Smith has beat the San Francisco 49ers before. But this is a team that has the talent to do it. But it's like Geno Smith, he makes some incredible throws. Like, that throw to Lockett in that game was an absolute ball. Like, that was an absolute dime. That was one of the best throws I've seen all seasons. And then he just makes some horrific throws at the end of the game here. And it's just something about the Seattle Seahawks. They start out hot, and then they kind of just peter off towards the end of the year. I was watching a video, too, of DK Metcalf, and DK Metcalf is also part of the problem with the Seattle Seahawks team, where I feel like he's someone that has the potential to be in that upper echelon of wide receivers. He has the potential to be an all-time great wide receiver, and he was talking to Shannon Sharp, and Shannon Sharp's like, you should get your blood work done, get with the nutritionist, and he's like, I just think you're inefficient now, and I truly believe you have the potential to be one of the greatest receivers, coming from a Hall of Famer, coming from arguably one of the best tight ends in football, that some may say. And then you have DK Metcalf there sitting in front of him, and he's like, no, I'll still do it my way, and then I'll prove you wrong. It's like, dude, okay, that's why you'll never be that dude. That's why you'll never be a Justin Jefferson. That's why you'll never be a Tyreek Hill. That's why you're not in the Jamar Chase conversation, because there are just some games where DK Metcalf disappears. There's just some games where the Seattle Seahawks defense looks like one of the best defenses in the league and then kind of comes out flat here. And I know you're playing a good San Francisco 49ers team, but you just lost to the Giants at home, and you kind of got dicked around the whole game, where you started out really hot in that game, where you get the fumble, you get the turnover in that game, and then your offense really isn't able to do anything here. So I think it was a nice run with Geno Smith. I think it's a nice run, but I think it's time to think about trading Geno Smith, where you have a new coach there. It's time for him to pick his guy, and I honestly think, like, see what you can get back for DK Metcalf at this point, because he's still very high. And with Bill Belichick, like, you want to sell high and see what you can get a haul. Like, I think you could get maybe a first-round pick and some nice pieces for DK Metcalf. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba on your team. You've been pretty solid at drafting wide receivers. It's like, maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's time for a little soft reboot here, where we get a new quarterback and a new kind of just vibe in the locker room here, and start to weed out those people who aren't, fully dedicated to the program. And then San Francisco, Deebo Samuel, back to doing Deebo Samuel things. He's still 29, still pretty young. He hasn't left his prime yet. And then George Kittle came back, did his thing here. And I think the 49ers are just a team that have owned the Seattle Seahawks. There's one point in this game, I think I texted you, I'm like, are they about to blow another lead? And the Seahawks, the thing is, they had a chance to come back, and the 49ers tried to give it away. So, like, I'm still worried about them as well, and I'm sure you are too.
Oh, yeah. I was waiting because I was doing my worst top 5 list. I'm like, they're up 20-3. Now they're up 20-10. Now they're up. Now it's a 5-point game. Oh, now the Seahawks have a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter. They almost stayed on my worst top 5 list. Spoiler, they didn't make it. They didn't avoid chaos again. But the 49ers, again, like, it's great. Their offense looked good in this game. Their defense made some big stops, but they still worry me. They get a lead. Fourth quarter comes around. I don't trust Kyle Shanahan to fan the flames when the team on the other side gets momentum. But yeah, your point about DK Metcalf, he's one of those guys that when he got drafted, I'm like, this guy's going to be amazing. And has he had a bad career? No, he's had a solid career. He's got 3,000-yard seasons. He's on pace for another one. But at the same time, like, you look at this guy's build. He is 6'4", 240. He runs a 4.3, and he's like 1% body fat. This guy should be up there with everybody you mentioned earlier. And yet, I know he's had some injury, but to some extent, like, I feel like his career has been somewhat of a failure. I feel like you could compare him more to like an Odell Beckham than you can to somebody like a Justin Jefferson, or somebody who's been able to submit themselves as a top 5 wide receiver. DK has the capability of it, but I just feel like his career has been somewhat of a letdown since he's joined the league. And by no means is he a bust, and by no means is he a bad player, but he had 11 targets. He corralled 3 of them. He also had a pivotal fumble as well that cost you the game. Like, I just think maybe he needs to take his career more. I don't know. I don't know exactly where it is, where I'd pinpoint for DK, but I don't love it. And then for Geno Smith, he's 34. He turned 34 this week. Like, how long is he your answer? I mean, Geno Smith, don't tell me. It was a great story. I loved his story here, and he stepped in. He played exceptional. He's played good for the Seahawks since then, but, like, it just feels like each year, like, it started off really hot with him, and you're like, oh, my God, we love what we've seen from Geno Smith. And then last year, takes a small step back, and now this year, it's been kind of the same. It's like, how long is this Geno Smith story going to – like, it's a great Cinderella story, but every great story must end. He's going to be 35 next year. Get a quarterback, and not Sam Howell or Jaron Hall. Get a real quarterback. Draft one. Progress them, And I think that's what they will do, ultimately. But
yeah,
I agree with those sentiments.
And Baker, like, got to the divisional round. Like, Geno hasn't even won a playoff game.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think they'll make the – I mean, I don't know. Each week it kind of changes for me with the Seahawks. It's like first 3 weeks I would have been like, yeah, they're making the playoffs. They could win a playoff game. Now I'm like, you lost to the Giants without Malik Neighbors and Devin Singletary. And then this game, you almost came back against the 49ers, but I don't know. I just haven't loved what I've seen from them to this point, and I just think that ultimately they're just going to be same as they were last year, middle of the pack, 8-9, 9-8, competing for somebody in the NFC North who's better than them for that last playoff spot.
Yeah, and we know September is not the real NFL season. So maybe they turn it around here, and maybe it's just a 49ers issue with them, but it can't be a Giants issue as well, where you can't lose to teams like Daniel Jones. If you really want to be that team to beat in your division, those are just inexcusable games to lose, and you can't have errors where you're getting field goals blocked to go to overtime. Like, that just can't happen.
No, you can't. What game shall we talk about next, Cowboy?
Game shall we talk about next? How about the Commanders and Ravens game? This was a game I felt like the score made it seem like a lot closer than it was, but I felt like a lot of people were like, wow, look at what the Commanders did versus the Baltimore Ravens. But we both said coming into this game, you know how we speak the future into existence and how all of it's culminating now in week 6 with everything we said in preseason and previewing this week. I was like, no, this is the Ravens game where they're just going to come out and dominate the Commanders from front to back. And that's kind of what they did in this game, where the Commanders had their moments, but there was never a point in this game where I had a doubt that the Ravens were going to win. They were in full control of this game. They were pretty much up 2 possessions most of the game, and the Ravens had their issues, but I said the Ravens would be locked in, where they'd kind of want to stunt this team like, hey, you may have had a good first few weeks and you're the highest scoring offense in the NFL, but I am Lamar Jackson. I am a totally different beast here. King Henry is a totally different beast here, leading the league in touchdowns this year. This is this guy in his 30s at this point, the guy who does not age. He's pretty much the LeBron James of running backs at this point with his longevity. Yeah. And I've said every single year, I'm like, this is not a guy you want to make your hot take where I think Derrick Henry's going to fall off. Like, good luck good luck to you, because this guy is not a normal human being. I don't know if you've seen Derrick Henry before, but this is not a normal specimen. This is a guy created in a lab where it doesn't even look like he was created to play running back. I still don't understand how Derrick Henry, at his size, fits through the tackles. Somehow he makes it work, and he makes it work in a fashion where he now looks like, again, the best running back in the league. It was not a Derrick Henry problem the past few years. He was kind of just laying in the weeds in Tennessee where they sucked. Didn't have A.J. Brown there anymore to take the pressure off of him, and he was really their entire offense when your best receiver is, exactly. The Titans did not have a best receiver on their team. They had fossilized DeAndre Hopkins, who has ankle problems now. But now that he's on the Baltimore Ravens, everyone is game planning for Lamar. Good luck, because you also have to game plan for Derrick Henry now. And now, talk about receivers who are getting better in year 2 that we've been talking about throughout the show. How about Zay Flowers? And then how about Mark Andrews finally getting some targets in this game as well? Like, this was one of those games where the Ravens okay, this is a team locked in to their Super Bowl window, and I think the Ravens are all in on the Super Bowl this year, because if you can't do it this year, when are the Ravens going to win a Super Bowl?
Yeah. Well, this is what helps the Ravens a lot. Derrick Henry, first in carries, first in rushing yards, first in touchdowns, averaging 6 yards a carry. You like that? We love it. One thing I've made the mistake of in the past, and it's well documented on this show, doubted Derrick Henry in the past. I have, and I'll admit it. 2022, I'm like, I don't know. Coming off an injury, Derrick Henry, almost 28 now. That's old for running backs. He had a 1,500-yard season, 13 touchdowns. I'm like, wow, I look stupid. Next year comes around. I said, well, he's almost 30 now. Derrick Henry, I don't know. 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns. And now this year, I'm like, no. I learned my lesson. No more arguing Derrick Henry. I'm tired of arguing Derrick Henry and being wrong. And so now, 6 games and he has 8 touchdowns rushing. 8 touchdowns. Let's see, how many more games? 11 more games. So he's on pace for potentially 24 touchdowns this year, potentially. Well, we could be seeing
MVP.
MVP. We might see an MVP Derrick Henry. We haven't seen a running back MVP since Adrian Peterson. And he had to break a record to do that. Derrick Henry.
What about Lamar?
And Lamar Jackson. I haven't even gotten to Lamar yet. You would think that with Derrick Henry running all over everybody this year, that maybe, just maybe Lamar wouldn't be, doing his normal thing. No, he has 400 rushing yards. He is also on pace for a 1,000-yard season. He's on pace for 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns. Never mind the fact that he also has a top QBR, 108 QBR. He's killing it. Touchdowns, he's killing it here. How do you stop the Ravens' offense? How do you do it? Zay Flowers has gotten really good. Mark Andrews, he's established. Isaiah Likely, we like him. But, this Ravens offense, if I'm game planning, it's a nightmare. You gotta stop one of them. Good luck stopping Derrick Henry the last decade. Can't do it. Good luck stopping Lamar the last decade. Good luck. Now you got to stop both of these fuckers? I mean, Derrick Henry had 25 carries for 130 yards. 5.5 yards a carry. You could literally run the ball with Derrick Henry every single play, and you'll still score every single drive. That's nuts. You don't even have a third down conversion with this guy. He just gets it on 2 drives. Just 1st and 10, 2nd and 5. 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, until you ultimately reach the end zone. It's unfair. And the Ravens, with the Chiefs banged up, with the Texans slowly coming into their own, the Ravens have got to be right there in the Super Bowl window. And I think if there's any year that they're going to beat the Chiefs, this has got to be the year for them. Whether they do or not remains to be seen, but this is their year. I think this is the year that they make the most noise.
Yeah, and we saw them absolutely destroy the Bills, too. It wasn't even close. And it wasn't like the Bills' offense was putting up numbers. People forget, this is still a great defense. Kyle Hamilton, his rookie season, was rated the #1 player at his position as a rookie. So he's someone who's still getting better here. So it's let alone the offense. Now you're giving that defense all of that rest. This is the version of the Dallas Cowboys with DeMarco Murray on steroids, where their offensive line was just letting him run through everyone. And the funny thing was, coming into the season, I was like, it's nice that they added Derrick Henry, but he's a luxury on this team because you still have a two-time MVP in Lamar Jackson. So now you have potentially two running backs on your team that could end up being MVPs in Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry, which is pretty wild. And now you have Zay Flowers as that threat for you. And really, that game with the Kansas City Chiefs was close, and it's not like the Chiefs were putting up a ton of points and marching up and down the field. That was still a winnable game if the Baltimore Ravens didn't, go away from what they were doing all season. And I felt like that was still a winnable game for Baltimore. It was in Baltimore, and the Chiefs, they're being the Kansas City Chiefs this year, but it kind of just doesn't feel like it's this year. And now with the Ravens, like, okay, you have to beat them by stopping the run. It's like, okay, how exactly are you going to stop the run when you have two of the best runners in the league this year, and Lamar Jackson really not turning the ball over as much as he had in years past because he really doesn't have to carry the offense with his legs and his arm. Now when he has to throw the ball, it's just, to throw the ball, and like you have to worry about him and Derrick Henry on the team. And also I feel like Derrick Henry has played well against the Chiefs in the past in those Titans battles that they have had with the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe the Titans got a few games off of them in the regular seasons at least, and he put up a strong effort in the conference championship versus them, and I think this will be the real career capper for Derrick Henry if he can get to and win a Super Bowl. And you want to talk about freeing DeAndre Hopkins from Tennessee? The perfect addition. We missed out on Devontae. We missed out on Amari Cooper. Well, how about DeAndre Hopkins just for a jump ball guy to be our number 2 receiver so we can get Nelson Aguilar out of there?
Oh my God, don't tease me like that. Don't tease me on this live stream like this. I got to take a bathroom break. Now, if Derrick Henry can win an MVP, or better yet, if they can win co-MVP, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, I think Derrick Henry should already be considered the best running back of our generation. I would put him over Adrian Peterson, who I think would be the previous generation's greatest of all time. Derrick Henry, there's never been a running back like this guy. And the fact that he's doing it, 30 doesn't sound old to most people, but for a running back who's taken how many carries? He was getting 350 carries a year for the last decade, and he doesn't look like he's missed a beat. In fact, he looks faster somehow, which is like baffling to me. This guy was literally the 2019 Titans offense completely. That was even with A.J. Brown, rushing for 2,000 yards, having 15 touchdowns this season, even getting it done in the receiving game as well. Like, this guy is not human. He's not a human being. Derrick Henry was made in the lab. The LeBron James comparison is accurate. When you have him who can carry your offense, and you have Lamar Jackson, who's the greatest mobile quarterback of all time, like, this has to be their year. It has to be. Between their defense, between the Chiefs, going for their three-peat, there's a reason why there's no team that's ever won 3 consecutive Super Bowls. Not that I'll ever doubt the Chiefs, but with everything that the Ravens got going on, it's hard for me to look away from them.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You should challenge yourself. Look up a Derrick Henry workout. See if you can do it. You may need some chains, but chains around your neck running downhill.
I will say that the Commanders, though, I know the score looks a little bit more than it actually was, but I don't think – Jaden Daniels still had a good game. Zach Ertz resurrected out of nowhere. He was pretty much gone. We haven't seen Zach Ertz since, like, the 2021 Cardinals, it feels like. He's still kicking around there, kicking some rocks, but he's played really well for them since stepping in for the Commanders, and Jaden Daniels still has a good game, so continues his momentum. Will the Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels argument, will that begin to start brewing? Who's the best in that class, potentially? We'll see how that goes. But Commanders, I think this is a good loss for them. You face the Ravens. The Ravens did dominate you, but not that Jaden Daniels played poorly. Their running game got stopped, but ultimately I feel like this is still a good loss for the Commanders overall, if there's such thing.
Yeah, and he didn't throw an interception, so that's also a good sign here. And you're going up against a team that is, frankly, better than you, and there's no shame in losing to the better team here. And the Commanders, you just lost to a team that is on a mission this year, and you're just not on their level yet, and that's okay because the Ravens. Like, even someone like Rashad Bateman is showing up this season where we've been waiting for him to have a breakout year. And now 70 yards in this game, that's what more can you ask from someone like Rashad Bateman? So definitely not discouraged with the Commanders. Definitely still think they can win their division with what we saw from the Cowboys this week. We ranted about them, so go back if you're just joining the live now, or for some reason you clicked YouTube and it put you forward to an hour and 5 minutes. Make sure you go back to the beginning. YouTube, I don't know why you did that there. Because Nick Sirianni. Should we just talk about this game, which was the absolute? I told you coming into this game, I'm like, the Eagles will win, but this is going to be a close, ugly, pathetic game from the Philadelphia Eagles as well. And I'm like, it's going to be a one-possession game. They're not going to go out here and just destroy the Cleveland Browns here. And the Browns had plenty of chances to win this game. The Eagles had plenty of chances to lose this game. And then we have fans chanting, "Fire Nick." And then we have Nick Sirianni, classy himself, with the buzz cut, looking like a weird, some toddler on the field now. And then he's yelling at fans back and forth like, fire me now. It's like, okay, yeah, fire you just put up 20 points versus the Cleveland Browns. We're supposed to be proud of that. Somehow this is supposed to get us excited for our season when we're chanting to fire you, and you can't even blow out the Cleveland Browns. And I know you had a chance to score at the end there, but this game should not have been this close at all, especially when you're going up against Cleveland, and the Giants handled them better than you did, I feel like.
Oh my God, this game gave me gray hairs, man. This game gave me gray hairs. The Eagles, they are the worst 3-2 team I've ever seen in my life. Good God. I was a big supporter of Jalen Hurts that year. That 1 year of Jalen Hurts. Everyone talks about, that 1 year of RG3, that 1 year of Tim Tebow. No, Jalen Hurts. Where in the world is Jalen Hurts? And then the Browns are stapled to the worst top five. This team is pathetic beyond belief. After this game, Amari Cooper said, "Get me the fuck out of Cleveland, please." And that is why he is gone. The Browns, you don't ever want to. This is a team you don't want to be within 10 points of them. It's a disease. And we knew. I mean, we talked about this game. We're like, the Eagles, this game should be an absolute annihilation. Otherwise, you're pathetic. Well, guess what, Eagles? Came down to the fourth quarter. The Browns had a chance to win. If the serial rapist wasn't the quarterback, you probably lose this game. Woof, dude. And not only that, you had Pierre Strong run all over you. You had Jerome Ford, God rest his soul. He got hurt in this game, but he ran all over you. Dante Foreman, who, let me tell you about Dante Foreman, a guy who's played for every team in the league at this point. He's still running it. He is the oldest 28-year-old I have ever met in my life. But yeah, the Eagles, I don't understand. The only time I've seen them put up points this year was when they were in South America. Is there something where Nick Sirianni just likes Latinas or something? Like, what's going on with the Eagles? Because ever since the Brazil game, they have continuously scored less points. Falcons, they scored 21, and they have not eclipsed 20 points since. What is the deal with the Eagles? Do they just have a fetish for Latinas, or are they just simply a bad team, which is kind of what I'm getting to? I think this team, the next couple of weeks, they got some lamps, but that end of that schedule, when you got the Rams, who potentially could be full health, then the Ravens, the Steelers, the Commanders, I think they're going to implode at this point. I think they're near implosion already. This team is just bad and just god-awful to watch in every sense of the word.
Yeah, no, they are. And they had A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith back this week, and it was still an eyesore of a team where you have your big three now in Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, and Saquon Barkley, and couldn't really get it done. And this is off a bye as well. Like, talk about a team that shit their pants versus the bye week. Holy crap, the Eagles absolutely fumbled here. So, yeah, definitely a disappointing game there. And then with the Browns, we talked about this last week, but just pay $50 million to not play Deshaun Watson because it's worth it. I mean, So if you're Cleveland, what's the goal here? Like, you want to talk about a team that you want to have a goal coming into the season. Like, if you're a player on that team, it's like, what are we doing exactly? What is the goal of this franchise right now? It's not to win games right now because we're playing Deshaun Watson. It's not what every team's goal should be, to win a Super Bowl. So, like, you have to ask yourself, if you're Cleveland, what actually is our goal here? What is our purpose this NFL season? What are we building on? Because it doesn't seem like we're building on everything. It seems like this season is a destruction on everything, and there's no sign of it getting better here. So I could see this being Kevin Stefanski's last year in Cleveland. I don't think Cleveland will fire him, but I could see him being like, let me go. Just let me go. Let me fix the Bills. I can coach Josh Allen better than Sean McDermott. I believe so. I think I can do it. I can coach the Cowboys better than Mike McCarthy. I can coach the Saints better than Dennis Allen. It's like, let me go, please.
Yeah. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think Kevin Stefanski is just going to resign. I mean, Cleveland put themselves on this. And you know what? I'm not even going to spoil it. They'll be on the worst top 5. They're never leaving the worst top 5 until Deshaun Watson is benched or cut. Like, how do you get motivated for a team? A team that you're sacrificing your body, you're sacrificing your livelihood, you're getting beat up every single game to play a sport you love, and your quarterback is Deshaun Watson, who, ever since he came onto the field, he has more settled lawsuits than touchdowns. And he's just continuously regressed to being worse and worse and worse since joining Cleveland. You have someone like Jameis Winston, who is by no means a rock star quarterback, but I think that he would at least ignite a spark where, sure, maybe you're not making the playoffs at this point because you're 1-5, but at least with Jameis Winston, you can get motivated around him because he has a big arm. Your receivers, they're motivated with Jameis Winston. I mean, you saw what he did in 2019 with them. Like, Jameis Winston is going to bring more energy to that Browns locker room than Deshaun could ever dream of. I get it's expensive, but if you want to just move past this god-awful era of the Cleveland Browns, you got to just swallow it, take the $50 million hit, bench him, start Jameis Winston, and then next year, like, just eat it. I hate to say it. Just eat the contract, because the longer he stays in that organization, the longer that shadow is just pouring down on Cleveland. And it's not like the Cleveland Browns don't already have a dark enough shadow with all the other failures that they've had the last 25 years. So at this point, like, just start Jameis. Just do it. And pray that your season gets better, and pray that Kevin Stefanski doesn't run out the building as fast as possible.
Yeah, no. And I agree there. But speaking of players who get their receivers excited, and someone who is dealing on Sunday, Jordan Love and the Packers. We said, Cardinals had a chance to turn their season around. I thought this was going to be a blowout coming into it, and this was a absolute massacre in this game. Jordan Love, another interception. I want to see him start to clean up the turnovers, but if it's going to be a 4-1 touchdown to interception ratio, I can live with that. Especially, it's like, we didn't even have any receivers go off in this game, but it's like Christian Watson in this game gets a touchdown. Romeo Doubs gets a touchdown. We have Jordan Reed in this game, and now we're using kind of Jordan Reed out of the backfield here. And we have two running backs who combined for 100 yards together. Like, this Packers team, another solid performance. And Jordan Love looked like he was finally back fully in the swing of things, absolutely dealing versus a pathetic Arizona Cardinals defense. I thought this was going to be a great week for the Packers, and they'd be able to put up a lot of points. And that's exactly what happened. And then Arizona again. Kyler Murray, speaking of players who got paid too early, like, if you just waited to pay Kyler Murray, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Someone else would have, but sometimes you just have to look at the NFL. I don't know, the past decade, and with every young rookie quarterback who's come into the league and then gotten paid, most of them haven't panned out. I can think of Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, and Burrow. Who else? Like, we think of how the Rams want to get rid of Jared Goff. The Philadelphia Eagles want to get rid of Carson Wentz. We think of how Trevor Lawrence got paid a year too early. Dak getting paid too early, not being productive at all. And you look at a model like what the Vikings did with Kirk Cousins, where you're not like saddled up to him. Like, stop handing out these massive deals to guys who haven't proven anything in the NFL. Like, sure, he's been fun in the regular season. For a season, like, we need to stop paying guys based off of one season. Like, okay, now we have so much evidence to point to, so many terrible contracts now of guys who have had one good year and haven't really been able to do it again and get paid. And now players come into the league, they're like, all I need is one good season and $200 million is going to fall into my lap. It's like, okay, I'm glad these guys are getting paid, but if you're an NFL owner and you're a franchise, like, time to start using some leverage here and not dropping these massive deals because it's screwing over your team.
Yeah, and I agree. The Cardinals contract, I'm going to look up Kyler Murray's contract while we're talking about this, but first I want to talk about Jordan Love. Jordan Love, 4 games, 4 multi-touchdown games. I mean, he's second in touchdowns, and he missed, 3 weeks of football? So, I mean, if you saw that Romeo Doubs touchdown, that was an amazing play. Off his back foot, throws the ball downfield. Romeo Doubs makes an amazing catch for the touchdown. Jordan Love, I mean, his numbers already this year have been electric. If he can just minimize the turnovers, then he'll be fine. He's got 6 picks already.
Him and Caleb Williams in the same division for the next decade is going to be crazy.
Yeah, seriously. And then it's not even talking about Jared Goff either, who'll be there for at least the next 5. But I want to talk about the Cardinals in this game because, look, I'm going to be transparent with everybody. It'd be great if the Cardinals were good at football because you know how exciting it would be to see a good football team for $20 every week? It would be electric. I'm starting to think, as somebody who has watched the Cardinals play relatively closely over the last decade, and really since Kyler Murray took over the helm, maybe Kyler's not the answer in Arizona. I don't know. How about the fact that outside of that 1 year, I'll pull up his record, I'll pull up his contract, what have they done exactly? Because I remember last year he came back, they didn't start winning games again, and I understand you look at him play and you're like, okay, well, he's talented. Like, you can tell he's a talented guy, and I know that there's suitors if in the event that he does leave, but at the end of the day, his career record is 30-40. You remove that 1 year where he was 9-5, you're looking at like 21-39. Like, that's not the norm. And I just think if you're going to actually be competitive in that division, in a division where the 49ers could potentially fall off in the next year or two, the Rams are getting older, and the Seahawks look like they could be entering a rebuild, you have an opportunity for a team that just drafted a great wide receiver. You have a good tight end. You have a couple of good running backs as well. Like, you're in a situation where you could actually make some noise. Someone would eat that contract, too. There's only 3 years left on that contract, and it's not actually that bad looking at it otherwise. They have 3 years. Cap hit would be pretty hefty this upcoming year. But if you trade him, which I think, unlike the Deshaun Watson situation, somebody would take Kyler Murray off your hands, and they would at least eat that contract, and you'd get a plethora of picks in return. Like, you got to look at other options other than Kyler Murray. You got to start looking at the draft because you're not very good at football. Your defense sucks, and Kyler isn't getting it to his playmakers. Not getting it to Marvin Harrison. Trey McBride had a nice game, but they have enough talent, and at this point, I got to point to Kyler because he's been the continuous string along these underperforming Cardinals teams.
Yeah, he misses wide open receivers. If you watch the Cardinals film, like, there's plenty of open guys. Like, that's not the problem.
Yeah, and they have good receivers. Like, Michael Wilson, solid receiver. Like, Marvin Harrison's got the talent to be a top 10 receiver in the league this year. And then Trey McBride's a top 5 or 6 tight end in the league at this point. So, like, it's not the problem with the talent. And, like, James Conner, another guy who's, like, played well in Arizona so far. Trey Benson played well so far. Like, what's the problem? It's been Kyler Murray. And I think his contract, you can trade him. You got 3 years of a contract with a guy who has been a Pro Bowler. For somebody on the other side who's desperately needing a quarterback, I don't know. I'd listen. I'd listen to offers for Kyler Murray. Why not? You have nothing to lose at this point.
Do you actually think Trey Benson's played well? I've had him on my team, and he's done nothing.
He's had some good runs. I mean, he had a big run this past game, but he's played okay. Not as much as you'd expect. The hype for him was definitely a lot higher than what he's actually been. But um, I just with Kyler again, like if you're looking at somebody who, like I'm looking at this team, like you think maybe the Titans, right? If the Titans win too many games, maybe the Titans are interested in Kyler. Or maybe it's a team like the Saints. They want to move on from Derek Carr. Maybe they take him. Or the Giants. Maybe they play too well. Like, there's plenty of teams that would be interested in Kyler Murray. You get off the contract. You start fresh. Miami. He would be that would be awesome for Miami, especially
Swap Tua and Kyler. Let's do it.
I would do it in a heartbeat. And I honestly think Cardinals could be better, and I think the Dolphins could be better too. I don't know. I think something to consider. Consider trading Kyler Murray.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Trey Benson and hype around him. Someone that didn't have a lot of hype coming into the year, who should have, is none other than the gas station himself, Bucky Irving, having another really good week. And he goes, 2 running backs for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with 14 attempts, and one goes for 136 and a touchdown, one goes for 81 yards and a touchdown, something we have not seen with Tampa since Kung Fu Lenny was doing some things, but they weren't doing it like this. And even though Baker Mayfield threw 3 interceptions this game, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, say that 10 times fast, dropped 51 points versus the New Orleans Saints, officially pushed the Saints all the way into the Phantom Realm, where they are officially the fluke of September, where it's like, okay, none of that matters. None of that was real here. And the Eagles game there was really the Saints team we're going to see throughout the year. We were still right about Dennis Allen not being the head coach for that team. And then Spencer Rattler put in a tough position, but Baker not having his best game. He threw 4 touchdowns in this game, but we still had a great running attack for Tampa. And I think that's really where you look at Tampa this season and what could push them over the top this year over years past, where it's like waiting for Rachaad White to do something. It's like just the meme of like poking on a stick, like, please, Rachaad White, do something. But no, it doesn't matter here. We got the gas station and Bucky Irving. We have 2 other solid running backs on this team, and we still have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin having one of the better years I've seen him have actually in a while here since Tom Brady, where it seemed like he struggled a little bit. It never felt like him and Tom Brady were on the same page, but it feels like Chris Godwin and Baker have better chemistry than Brady had with him. Is that safe to say?
I would say so, 100%. Yeah, no, and first of all, I gotta just say, the nickname for Bucky Irving, the gas station, I haven't heard anybody nationally say that, but I gotta give you your flowers, man. Like, Bucky Irving, the gas station, like, that's a great nickname. So
it is.
I gotta give you your flowers. I looked up his nicknames, and nobody is calling him the gas station but you. But I think it's time we rally around that, because pretty great. I mean, I don't know. And plus, I mean, keep in mind, Bucky Irving, 4th round pick. I didn't even know who Bucky Irving was until 3 weeks ago, and now he's just been out of his mind. I mean, when you rush for 270 rushing yards, and Baker throws for 300, and you put up a 50 burger on the Saints. First of all, thing we're not surprised by, the Saints are frauds. Who's surprised? Not me.
Oh,
congratulations! You scored 40 points against the Dallas Cowboys. Boy, how does that look now? And the Panthers. Oh boy, you beat the Panthers, but you scored 40 points. Crazy. They're frauds, and Dennis Allen will lose his job at the end of the season. But the Bucs, yeah. If the gas station, if he can keep doing what he's doing, hell, even Sean Tucker, who I never heard of before here either, he came out and balled too. Down goes Rachaad White, who we've been waiting for. Turns out he already had your top running backs already on this team. You got the gas station, you got Sean Tucker, who, how many carries did he have last year? He had 15 carries last year, had 16 carries yesterday. Doesn't get much better than that. He's a killer.
No.
So, yeah, Bucs, if they can run the football, good luck. Him and the Falcons, they're going to be competing.
Yeah, it's going to be a good showdown with the Falcons, and we can pivot to that game next, because I challenge the Falcons, and I know they watch the show, and I know what they take on the show and what they hear real serious. And I was like, you've been impressive. You played some good teams here, but every game has been one possession. Can you just go out there and kick the Panthers' ass? And okay, you went out there, dropped 38 points, Panthers score 20. Not really a big deal. You're kind of coasting at the end of it, but the Falcons finally come out here and get a good win where they just comfortably beat a team. It's the first win where they can sit back and relax, pop open a cold one, kick their feet up, and then kick some cat ass like everyone around the league has been doing, except for the Raiders of all teams here, who are not looking good. And it seems like that was a sign of the Raiders and not necessarily the Panthers here anymore. But now we have the Falcons getting their best win of the year, scoring 38 points, offense coming together, Bijan getting involved in this game, Kirk Cousins doing his thing. Are you glad that the Falcons accepted our challenge here, and anything else we can learn from this?
Sigh relief. Good God. If they had a close game against the Panthers, and honestly, beginning of the game, I'm like, guys, it's the Panthers. These guys own the worst top five. They do not belong anywhere near a lead in this game. They shouldn't even smell a lead in their foresights. But thank God they pulled ahead in the second half, and we had Tyler Algier, who fantasy owners hate at this point. I love it. Good for Tyler Algier. He's doing great. Bijan, both of them basically getting 100 yards each. They killed it. And then Drake London really stepping in as a wide receiver one to this point. I had my questions going into the season. I'm like, is Drake London going to be a legitimate number one? And he looks like he's up to the task. And then, hell, every once in a while, we even see a Kyle Pitts sighting for this Falcons team. I'm like, huh, interesting. He was definitely worth the pick above Jamar Chase at this point. That's awesome. And even Darnell Mooney, a guy who I've had my doubts with in the past, he steps up, gets a couple of first downs here and there. All right, Darnell Mooney, I see you.
Now, here's the guy.
One thing I like about the Falcons as well is every team has their gadget guy that they just love to plug. And the Falcons, they got a fever. And it's Ray McCloud. There's a Ray McCloud going around Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Everywhere, it seems like every drive, they're trying to get Ray involved. He is their glue. And you know what? I'll support it. Ray McCloud, what did he play for? The Niners, the Steelers? He's played for a million teams. But you know what? I'm here for it. I like that they're up for the task, and I like that they beat up on the kitty cats like this.
Yeah. Another team that was beating the hell out of another team and finally put an end to the nonsense and the lies that were out there the past few weeks. The Chargers came out there and just bludgeoned the Broncos. Justin Herbert was on a mission. He took your challenge where he hadn't beat the Broncos in Denver before. And we have Jim Harbaugh, I think it was called like a heart flutter, where his heart rate like rapidly moves up and down, something like that. But he had a medical issue and went into the blue tent and did not matter. Hopefully everything is okay with him and he will be all set there. But have a solid game from J.K. Dobbins. Justin Herbert plays a clean game. Nothing incredible there, but you get the 23-16 win against a team that's kind of been your house of horrors. So it's kind of like we talked about those curses with Dan Campbell, and there's just some certain little wins you need here and there to kind of build in your psyche here. And this was a huge game for Justin Herbert because he has not won in this building here. Patrick Surtain has kind of been his father at corner over the past few years, but able to go ahead, get it done, even with Ladd McConkey getting beat up a little bit, and J.K. Dobbins, another solid game here against the Broncos defense that was playing very well over the past few weeks, but you're able to slow down the 40-year-old Bo Nix in this game, where he had a fine game, but it was just another Broncos game where they got 16 points, and it seems like, again, you compared them to the New England Patriots with Mac Jones. I think that's spot on still, where it's like we're going to we'll have a game here or there where maybe we'll score like 25, 27, but mostly we're going to win like 16-13.
Yep. And I'll be honest, we were talking about the 49ers blowing big leads. I was nervous that the Chargers were going to do that in the fourth quarter. They were up 23-0. I'm like, Chargers, please. I was watching this with a Chargers fan. I was like, guys, please. But I was nervous at first because I kept seeing like Lad McConkey goes into the medical tent. J.K. Dobbins goes in the medical tent. Quentin Johnson goes in the medical tent. Jim Harbaugh goes into the medical tent. I'm like, Chargers, oh my God, please. Can we wrap this team in bubble wrap for Christ's sakes? Even the head coach isn't safe. I was like, what, did he get a fucking paper cut on the clipboard or something? Good God. But they survived. They did not blow a 23-point lead, thank God, which, you know what? I like what I've seen from the Jim Harbaugh-led Chargers. Their defense has been really solid for them, and their offense has been very efficient. And if Justin Herbert's that guy for you, then perfect. He doesn't need to put up all these numbers like he did in his first few years with Brandon Staley. They have a good enough defense. J.K. Dobbins has been great for them so far. So you know what? If that's how they win, if they're going to just play gritty football, then I like this version of the Chargers. They have the lowest points against so far in the league, so good win for them. Glad they didn't blow the lead. And Bo Nix coming back down to earth. I compared them to the first year with Mac Jones for the Patriots, and I think that's accurate. You score more than 20 points against them, you're probably beating the Broncos at this point. But yeah, Bo Nix, a little bit more athletic, of course, but like the win for the Chargers overall.
Yeah, solid win for the Chargers. Let's see if they can wrap themselves in bubble wrap for the next week there. One of the most bizarre 30-point games I've ever seen here. The Pittsburgh Steelers. What the hell was that? This is like Justin Fields only throws for 145 yards. He is not on the same page with his receivers here, but we get the Najee Harris game. Justin Fields runs for 2 touchdowns in this game. Your defense is able to put up points in this game, and you drop 32. The Raiders officially look dead here. And for the Steelers, I'm glad this wasn't a good game. And they did exactly what they should have, but not in the way I expected it to do. And I really wanted to see some progression from Justin Fields passing. And I guess that is a nitpick in this situation when you go out there and drop 32 points on this Raiders team. But it just felt like one of the most bizarre 30 balls I've seen so far this year, where you're only throwing for 145 yards. That's crazy to me.
Yeah, I don't. And then Justin Fields got benched. So, Russell Wilson will step in next week. And was it because of this performance potentially? I guess we'll see. But I don't know. They really could go for another receiver. We talked about DeAndre Hopkins. Would him going to Pittsburgh solve that? I don't think it will. Najee Harris has one of his 4 games a year that he plays efficient running football. But hey, they scored 30 points. You said that I should get off the bandwagon, and I stayed on the bandwagon. They got the win, so maybe I'm a good luck charm for the Steelers. I don't know. But
if they start Russ, though, are you staying on?
Hey, I have a Russell Wilson jersey somewhere buried in the closet, so I remember those years very fondly. So did they have a 300-yard game? No, they did not. But you know what? I'll still ride with them because we love those Pittsburgh Steelers. The only highlight for the Raiders at this point, after they traded Devontae Adams, is Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is their offense. It's not their running game. It's not Aiden O'Connell. Really, their game plan is let's feed Brock Bowers as many targets as we possibly can and pray that he catches all of them. That is their game plan at this point. The Raiders, woof, dude. This team sucks. How do you lose to the Panthers?
The Raiders have to be the dumbest team in the league. You want to talk about the meme of the guy opening the shirt that he's wearing and putting it on? Who thought it was a good idea for Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew to have to throw it 40 times a week? Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, kind of the same quarterback. I think Minshew's better here. I really don't think Aiden O'Connell is that much better than him. And I think Minshew's at least a guy you can rally around on this team. But was this Antonio Pierce? He had a good finish to the season, and it seemed like it was everyone rallied around him because of how much we hate Josh McDaniels and how much of a terrible coach Josh McDaniels is. But now, you're a defensive head coach, and the defense sucks. Like, this is a team where, like, if the defense doesn't start to pull together, I get you're not an offensive guy and that's not your thing, but at the same time, you're the head coach. And you need to figure that out at some point because Alexander Madsen, as your number one running back, not going to get it done here. Having, 57 rushing yards total. That's not going to get it done for you when you have a Minshew and Aiden O'Connell. Like, the reason Minshew was good last year, again, and I've said it before on the show, and I will say it again, is because of Shane Steichen, the Colts offensive line, and Zach Moss. And he, was able to thrive under play action and not have to throw the ball every time. But when you know the Raiders don't have a good running game, now you don't have Devontae Adams there, and your number one receiver is Jacoby Myers, give me a break.
It's so incredible to me that, just 1 year ago, they had Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, and 2 years ago they had Derek Carr. They weren't that far removed from having an offense that was decently, at least talent-wise, they had good talent. They had Hunter Renfrow, which I don't even know where Hunter Renfrow is at this point. And then Jacoby Myers, who last year played really good football. How do you go from, a top receiver, top running back, now you have a top tight end, top receivers, to this so quickly? Within a year, you lose pretty much all of your offensive talent, and now your offense completely sucks. And I feel for Aiden O'Connell, I feel for Minshew, because this is a situation where your team can't run the football. You're not super athletic like someone like even the Broncos, who don't have a great run game. At least Bo Nix can move a little bit. You can't even, these guys aren't mobile. And so you have to throw it 40, 50 times a game. You have no one to throw it to at this point. It's just Jacoby Myers, and it's just Brock Bowers. So it's the Raiders, I don't know how they went this bad this quickly, but that's kind of where they're at now. Another team just looks completely dead in the water.
Yeah, I looked at the Raiders, and before they were good, and now they're not good, and people are saying that they were supposed to be good, and what happened to the Raiders? We don't know, and that's what I hear, at least.
Exactly. You know what's team I want to pick up on a little bit? We go to the Sunday night game. No, not even just nope, not just the Giants, because I want to talk about the Bengals as well. Good God, was this one of the worst games of the week or what? I thought this was going to be a bludgeoning bath by the Bengals, or at least a high-scoring game, because the Bengals' defense sucks and the Giants' offense sucks. I'm like, okay, whatever. The Bengals, 7-0 for what felt like the entire game was 7-0. Are you kidding me? You have Joe Burrow, who is by no doubts a top 5 quarterback in the league. You have Chase Brown, who has played pretty well for you. Zach Moss, for the most part this year, decently enough for you. And you have, I don't know, maybe the best receiver in the league, or at least a top 5 receiver in Jamar Chase. T. Higgins, who's trying to get paid. You have this Russian guy out of nowhere who's playing well for you guys. Bengals offense should be fine. They should be putting up 30 points a game. And they have, for the most part, because they kind of have to. 7 points? 7 points. At one point when I was watching this game, I know the Giants suck. They've been on the worst top 5. But I was literally in my notes do I put the Bengals on this list? Why is it 7-0? In the third quarter, I was dying on the inside watching this game. I know the Giants suck, as I mentioned, but the Bengals, you score a first quarter touchdown, you do nothing until the very end of the third quarter. What did you do? Did you guys fall asleep during the game? Did you guys take a NyQuil or something? What happened in this game? This is a game. I don't care about the Giants. Giants suck. Daniel Jones sucks. What else is new? Hasn't thrown a touchdown at MetLife since 2022. We know that about the Giants. We'll talk about them later. The Bengals, what was this game? I get you win, but does this give me any optimism? I'm like, no. Maybe the Bengals this year just suck. Maybe I'm wrong. Go ahead.
I think you're overreacting here because we've seen the Chiefs play with their food a little bit this season and just, do what it takes to win here. I think you're missing the point with the Bengals and why you should be worried about them, which is the offensive line is still not good because the Giants actually have, I think, a really good defense this year. And I think if your offensive's slow versus the Giants, I don't have as much of a problem there, especially with Joe Burrow being under fire the way he was in this game. like I was making pumpkin bread during this game, watching it on the tablet in the kitchen, and then I just look over and suddenly there's no one near Joe Burrow and he's running wide open. I'm like, how did that happen? Like Joe Burrow can run, but not like that. Like that is not like they just like completely blew that play, but it could have been a closer game for the Giants, and I think it is a testament to the Giants defense. And I've compared them to the Chicago Bears with Mitchell Trubisky. When they had Khalil Mack and Brian Burns was having his way. This is a Bengals team that still has their issues on the offensive line, but what is the major issue we've been waiting for them to address and the major unit that has needed to step up for this team? It has been the defense, and the defense did not get torched by Daniel Jones. The defense made Daniel Jones look like the Walt Jr., son of Jim Carrey, that he is in this game where they forced some turnovers. They did not let the Giants move up and down the field, and they were able to get stops. And teams like Seattle have not been able to do that versus the Giants. Cleveland has not been able to do that. And the Bengals defense, frankly, has looked like Swiss cheese when you put it into a fire here. Just completely melts versus most offenses here. And that was a concern coming into this game, and I thought it could be a bad matchup for the Bengals and maybe a final nail in the coffin, but they found a way to get the victory and escaped with the win, and I think that's really what matters in this game, especially their defense finally, I get it's Daniel Jones, but the Giants should only score 7 points, and that's exactly what they did. And did you know Brian Daboll has never been shut out in a first half in his career? And the Bengals delivered that first shutout when they have been a terrible defense all season long. So if that's a turning point and a positive we can take for the Bengals, I will happily take that for Cincinnati. And I think you're overreacting.
I think I'm happy that their defense played great. Eyesore of a game. They did not have Malik Neighbors. Tyron Tracy had a good game overall, but at the end of the day, the Bengals are 2-4 now, and their schedule gets a lot easier. So hopefully, I want the Giants. Let's be honest, I want the Bengals to succeed. But am I wrong to say that this game was not awful to watch? This game was terrible. Tell me that if it wasn't Lions and Cowboys on Sunday Night Football, that would not have been a way better Sunday night game. This game was dog shit at the end of the day. But they got the win. They got the win.
Yeah, I liked it.
This is what is important.
I didn't mind this game, and I think we have seen worse games this season. I think there is some entertainment values, and how can you have a bad NFL game when you have the sweet voice of Chris Collinsworth narrating it? Like,
you make a good point. Yeah, well, the Bengals upcoming weeks. Yeah, upcoming weeks they have the Browns, the Eagles, and the Raiders, so they should be 5-4 by the time they face the Ravens, if all goes well.
Yeah.
So they should turn it around.
They're right on schedule. Like, everyone freaks out about the Bengals every year. It's like everyone loses their mind. Like, they do this every season. Some seasons it's worse. Do we want them to do it? No. Should they do it? No, but it's just who this team is at this point, and they'll never get home field advantage. And it's going to be, those Big Ben matchups with the Ravens in the playoffs. Think about if we get in the first round Bengals and Ravens, two teams that have Super Bowl aspirations, but one of them's going home in the first rounds. Especially the Chiefs should not lose a divisional game this year. No. At all. None of these teams should even hang with the Chiefs. They already beat the Chargers, who's probably their biggest competition, and the Broncos, Bo Nix. Yeah.
We don't have any.
So
yeah,
I think the Chiefs are going to be the 1 seed, but potentially fall in the conference championship this year. We'll see, though.
Yeah, that's my early prediction for them too, especially with the injuries. Let's talk about the final game of the week. We had 3 teams facing off. We had the Buffalo Bills, the New York Jets, and the NFL referees come in Monday Night Football, bright lights of New York / East Rutherford. Let's see. Stats-wise, we had the Bills, they had 360 yards of total offense. The Jets had almost 400, and the referees had about penalties. And the referees had 215 total penalty yards. So in this game, who do you think won this game? The Bills? Did the Jets lose this game? Or were the referees the star of the show in this game? Because they had more penalty yards than Josh Allen had passing yards in this game.
Yeah. This was a game where it's like, oof, I understand why what happened in Brazil happened. And if you know, you know. It's one of those situations. I'm not going to talk about it just so YouTube isn't like, oh my God, you can't advocate for that on the show. But God damn it, this referee every single week is one of those people. You just have one of those people that talks, and it doesn't matter what they say or what comes out of their mouth, it just infuriates you. And why does this referee have to ref a game every time it talks? It sounds like he's getting a colonoscopy. I'm like, my God. And then every single play, there was a flag here. It was comical. I mean, if you made up a drinking game for this time, every time they throw a flag, and if you count decline penalties, you would find yourself butt naked running down Main Street, wherever you are, downtown. Like, that's how messed up you would be with these referees throwing a penalty. And it's like, when Aaron Rodgers is saying, like, yeah, that's not roughing the passer, this is excessive, it's like, this referee team, there needs to be an investigation, because when the game is about them that much on a Monday night, when there's missed field goals on top of it to add to the drama, and the touchdown that they took back was absolutely ridiculous. You have a hold that doesn't affect the play, they call it. These refs wanted to be the star of the show, and they made themselves the star of the show, but there needs to be an investigation. People need to be demoted. People need to lose jobs. That head referee, I know some people don't like the G.I. Joe guy that's like, first five, offense, on the defense. I don't mind that guy, but this guy who's like, holding on the offense, number 76, 10-yard penalty, repeat, first down. Like, come on, get that guy out of here. Send that guy to the WNBA. Make that guy watch tennis. Honestly, no. Send him to India to ref cricket. I don't want that guy ever near an NFL game again, because we should not be talking about the referees right now. We should be talking about, oh my God, did you see that Hail Mary from Aaron Rodgers? Did you see how well the Jets and the Bills matched up, where that looked like an actual competitive game, where it may be a battle for that division? We should be talking about all of those things up front right now, but we have to talk about there are two penalties on the play, both on the defense. First one, holding. Next one, roughing the passer. Like, really?
Yeah.
We have to talk about that guy now?
You know what that guy
Awful.
reminds me of? He reminds me of Franklin the Turtle. Remember, I forget. I'm trying to think. He was in, like, I think in the books.
Turtle?
Yeah, he was like a TV series guy. That's what he kind of reminds me of. He reminds me of Franklin the Turtle. In every single game, every single play, it felt like he was just ready to ruin it. But I do want to talk about.
He does look like a turtle out of his shell, though. Like when the fucking turtle from Over the Hedge is out of his shell. He does kind of look like that.
That's exactly what it was like. But this game, like, otherwise, if you remove the penalties from it, both of them, great game. Aaron Rodgers had the Hail Mary at the end of the half, which was like as vintage Aaron Rodgers as it gets. Great play, and of course it's Adel Mazard that corrals it down. Breece Hall had a good game in this game. And then, Josh Allen continuing his clean streak. No interceptions yet, so good for him there. And both teams, I felt like, the moves that we saw made this earlier today are in response to the game that we just saw played. The Bills, they saw this, and they're like, okay, well, we can't keep throwing it to Keon Coleman and Mac Hollins and, these other guys. They're trying to make it work, kind of like how we saw the Chiefs do it the first year without Tyreek Hill. It's not the same. They're not nearly as explosive. They went out, they got Amari Cooper. And then the Jets, Garrett Wilson starting to mesh together a little bit with Aaron Rodgers, but he wants his friend Devontae there. Devontae Adams is there. Now, both of them acquiring top receivers. I feel like in relation to both of these guys being added to those teams, like, this could be a dogfight for the division. And I think the Jets, they'll have a bit of an easier road ahead of them compared to the Bills, but overall, like, this was a good game outside of the referees.
Yeah, no, it was a great game outside of the referees, and What an interception. I mean, Bills safety absolutely stepping up here, putting some hits on the players, and then coming up with the interception to seal the game there. And yeah, it's like the Bills offense at the beginning of the game looked like they were just about to march up and down the field, but then it kind of leveled out here. The Jets were able to move the ball in this game, and then Aaron Rodgers kind of started to find Garrett Wilson kind of started to find the rhythm in this game where Aaron Rodgers looked a little bit more mobile. And this is coming off just being in London the previous week, where typically you get your bye after that. So I thought if there's ever an encouraging loss, like people are burying the Jets today. And now that you have Devontae Adams on that team, if this was a game with Devontae Adams on the Jets, and now Devontae Adams is going to be your number one because of his chemistry with Aaron Rodgers. Now with him, Garrett Wilson, and Adam Lazard, just with what he's done this season, it has been impressive. Still a young receiver, and Aaron Rodgers trusts him. Like, this is going to be a legitimate team where Aaron Rodgers is like, I can't keep throwing to Mike Williams here. And Breece Hall, I know he hasn't had a great season, but there were times in this game where Breece Hall looked extremely explosive. And if it wasn't for holding, like, Breece Hall would have had an electric game where he had some great runs that were taken back, where there's just some unfair penalties on both sides. And I'm not saying the refs are slanting it. They're just throwing as many flags as possible here. So I think it was a good game for the Jets, but overall thoughts on the Jets acquiring Devontae Adams. Do you think this makes them a legitimate threat to the Bills now after watching this game?
For sure. I mean, I think this ultimately came down to a couple of missed field goals. It came down to maybe a couple of calls that didn't go their way. Like, this is a game that the Jets very easily could have won. And I don't know if it necessarily was like a poor game in general for them, but I look at the rest of their schedule, like at least in the next couple of games, like I'll pull up their schedule here. They face the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, which I think they can win that game. The Patriots, they should be able to win. And then later on, they face teams like the Cardinals and the Dolphins and the Jaguars twice. They face the Dolphins twice. So I think that they can still get to that 9-8, 10-7 realm. And then for the Bills, like their schedule will begin to get a little bit tougher here. I'll pull up the Bills schedule right here. They start to face teams like the Chiefs and the Niners and the Rams and the Lions all in a row come the end of November. So I think right now the Bills, they're 2 games ahead, but as we get closer to the end of the season, I think that's when we're going to start to see them get a lot closer.
Yeah, and the Jets can make up that game in the rematch versus the Bills, and the Bills have not played well against good teams this year. Texans, they're trailing that whole game, and it took a miracle play from Keon Coleman on 4th down to even get back into that game. But that game was clearly mismanaged by Sean McDermott, and that is still an issue for the Buffalo Bills here. And this game didn't make me ooze confidence in the Buffalo Bills, where the Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen has been there. But now with Aaron Rodgers, it's like I feel like Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams is a more dangerous pickup than Amari Cooper for the Buffalo Bills, where I think Amari Cooper will fit in, but that will take time. Where people, like, I was talking to people at work today, and they're like, oh, well, they'll have to integrate Devontae Adams into the playbook. I'm like, you're stupid, right? Aaron Rodgers is the playbook. Aaron Rodgers, like, run this route. They already have that symbiotic relationship now, and then we're adding him with Garrett Wilson here, where he's probably going to be your 2. Like, this is a team that can get better here, and Aaron Rodgers will continue to get better as the season goes on. So I think people are unfairly burying the Jets here. So I think this will be a competitive finish for the division, but this doesn't give me a lot of confidence or really change my opinion about the Buffalo Bills here, because when you've played the top contenders in the AFC, you have lost, and you only scored 10 points versus the Ravens. Like, that's still a problem for me.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the losses so far for the Jets, like looking back, like the Niners, okay, defending NFC Championship team, okay, makes sense. Also, keep in mind that the Jets have a quarterback who missed all of last season, and he's going into a new system as well. So that's one thing. The Broncos loss wasn't cute. I'm not going to sugarcoat that, but lose to the 5-0 Vikings, and then they lose to the Bills, who are leading the division. So I'm not going to bury the Jets either. I do think that Aaron Rodgers is starting to come into his own again. That Hail Mary gave me a lot of hope, and I think he had a good game overall, so I'm not going to bury him. For the Bills, I like the addition of Amari Cooper a lot. I think eventually, when they start to seam it together in the next 2 or 3 weeks, they'll really like having Amari Cooper there. Because I think the biggest problem with the Bills this year is they don't have somebody to just give the ball to when they need a first down. Keon Coleman has not panned out for them. Matt Collins, he's a fine player, but he's by no means a one. You get Amari Cooper. Everywhere Amari Cooper's gone, he's been a baller, including Cleveland. I think he'll make that offense a lot more efficient. He'll make it a lot more explosive, so should make them a little bit better. Now, when they face the Chiefs in mid-November, that's when we'll really see how much that Amari Cooper addition has benefited them. But it's not. I was excited to see them get Amari Cooper because I'm glad he left fucking Cleveland of all teams.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yeah, I was excited that Amari Cooper got free, and it's kind of a trade that happened out of nowhere, and I was glad that he kind of got out of there where the Cowboys traded him, I believe, to the Browns. So it's not like he wanted to be there. Not a ton of people want to be in Cleveland. No disrespect to the city of Cleveland. Have had some good times there, but not somewhere I'd walk around at night if I don't know where I'm going there. But yeah, overall, great pickup for the Buffalo Bills. Do I think this automatically puts them back in the Super Bowl bubble? No, but it puts them back into the divisional round bubble where they were before. And then Devontae Adams, I think, just stabilizes the Jets so far this year, where Aaron Rodgers has more of his people there. He's the playbook now without Hackett. Robert Saleh is gone. Even though I didn't really think that was a fair firing. Maybe you win that game with Robert Saleh, but this is still a new head coach, and the Jets are still figuring out. So I think just for that reason, they still have a little bit more potential than the Bills might have this season, where it's like with Sean McDermott, it's like we've seen it before. We know he can't manage the game properly. We know he's going to make some boneheaded errors, and Josh Allen's going to try and turn the ball over twice when all you need to do is go into overtime. And that's also on Sean McDermott here. So overall, a great game, a incredible week of football where everything we have said in the offseason is starting to come true. And it's like pretty much, I don't think we missed a game this week. I don't think I missed a pick, really.
No.
Except for maybe Thursday night with Seattle there. There was an incident that happened. There's a video going around, though, of a guy who was in a Ravens jersey looking for Commanders fans, beating people up. Did you see that video or have any thoughts on it?
Yeah. Why? You won. I never understand teams. This reminds me kind of like several years ago, maybe 5-6 years ago now. The Yankees were in the wild card against the Athletics, and they beat them 11-0. And after somebody hit a grand slam off of the Athletics pitcher, putting them up 7-0, a bunch of Yankees fans just poured a bunch of beer on this poor, innocent Oakland Athletics fan. I'm like, why? You guys are winning, and you guys are shutting him out. Like, why do you need to fight them? What are they doing? They're not doing anything. Leave them alone. They're fucking fans of the other team. They're probably from Washington. Like, fuck off. That's basically my sentiment. Like, why are you trying to fight them? They're just hometown men. They like the Commanders. Jaden Daniels, very good at football. Like, why are you fighting them? What did they do? They didn't do anything. That's my sentiment on it. Leave them alone.
This is also one of those bigger guys who probably can't fight, but he was just looking for two small people that he could pick on and throw around and be like, oh, and then I'm pretty sure he knocked someone out there. But this is why you have to be vigilant when you go out here. This is why I'd encourage all of you to get in the gym and work out, so you don't have people like this coming out there trying to pick on you. And this isn't somewhere where this is something we should encourage with him, but it's like a guy like this kind of just ruins it for some fans. So that was a wild video, the fact that he's just out there, but it's not like he was looking for fans his size to pick on, and it was classic bully. Let me find two smaller skinny fans to pick on there. So just be careful where you go and make sure you bring lots of friends with you so you can take a bully like that out and he doesn't try anything. But that guy absolutely should have some talks. And I did see a couple posts where people posted his work there, so people could just submit his name to his work and then also tag him in the video. And then a girl from college also came out against him, saying he may have something alleged grape may have gone on there, which definitely matches his behavior and description there. Not throwing out any allegations, but just kind of fitting with what he saw. But yeah, don't be that fan.
Don't be that.
It's like you can get in fights, but I don't even care if people get in fights if it's consensual. Like even pouring beer on someone, like it's a dick move, but it's not as bad as that. But if someone also wants to get into a fight with you, they're the same size. It's like, okay, make sure there's rules to it at least, and no one's gonna pull a knife or a gun on you.
Yeah, that's fair. I just leave them alone, dude. You lost. Your team won.
You won.
Nothing to be mad about. Like your team won and you dominated them. Like, what are you out for? What are you out to do?
There's no reason to storm they don't storm the Capitol when they lose. They storm the or they don't storm the Capitol when they win. They storm the Capitol when they lose.
Exactly. Makes no sense. But we've concluded. We've talked about every game around the NFL this week. We talked about the Amari Cooper and Devontae Adams trade and every news article in between. But there's one thing that we forgot to do. One thing that we have to do before the show is over. The reason why you have your smartphone, the reason why you're listening and tuning into the show to this week, that's right, the documents are out. It's time to go over the worst teams in the NFL, according to the Brickyard, into Week 6. Now, there's a couple of teams that you would think would be here because they are bad teams, and maybe they are one of the worst teams in the league, but maybe there's a sign of optimism, or maybe they were just spared this week because the kindness in my heart is very warm, very large. First teams that will not be included, Drake May. Drake May, the Patriots, give him a little bit of hope. You know what? Maybe this is their franchise guy. Played pretty well against a really good Texans team. For now, the Patriots will not be included. The Bengals for now. That game was pretty fucking terrible. And if they would have lost that game, they might have been on this worst top 10. But they are not. They are spared. And the Panthers, I'm leaving them alone this week. Feeling a little too soft on them. Maybe they come back next week. And a dishonorable mention to the referees in that Bills and Jets game. 215 penalty yards? Are you kidding me? You scored more than the Carolina Panthers did, for fuck's sake. Just let them play. Let the boys play is what they say. Dishonorable mention to the Bills and Jets referees. Let's start at number 5. Worst top 5. The Raiders. What happened to this Raiders team? They had Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, Devontae Adams, Jacoby Myers, Hunter Renfrow, and now they have Brock Bowers. You think maybe this team is on the up and up. They fired Josh McDaniels, who should have never been their head coach, and they hired a guy who we thought, you know what, maybe this is the right choice. Maybe the Raiders are going in the right direction. Gardner Minshew joined. I'm like, okay, there's some optimism. And now I look, and I understand that Las Vegas is in a desolate desert, but good God, the only show in town is Brock Bowers at this point. Their running game, non-existent. Josh Jacobs packed it up to Cheeseville, Green Bay. And then Devontae Adams is now playing for the Jets. You're looking at the Raiders now. Brock Bowers or bust? A tight end or bust? Good luck, Raiders. No running game. Terrible quarterback play. And their defense sucks. They're worst top 5. Number 4. I have the Jacksonville Jaguars. Guys, there's constants in life. Death, taxes, and the Jaguars playing in London. You can't even win in your home country? The Jaguars? This wasn't even Trevor Lawrence's fault this time. You have Travis Etienne running backwards in this game. -1 rushing yards for your number 1 first-round pick running back, Travis Etienne. Getting smoked. I understand the Bears are a better team, but again, defend the land. Defend your freedom. Defend your tea tax, everything that Britain represents. Good God. Number 3, I have the Giants. The Giants are back. I was nice to them last week because they got a nice win against the Seahawks, but you scored 7 points against the worst defense in football. The Bengals, whose defense looked pathetic going into this game, you mustered up 7 points. And keep in mind also, Daniel Jones has not thrown a touchdown in his home stadium since 2022. The world has changed since 2022. Big things, AI, movies, Barbie and Oppenheimer. These are all things that have happened since Daniel Jones has thrown touchdowns in his home stadium. What are we doing here? I mean, good God. Comeback Player of the Year candidate a couple years ago. You score 200 yards. The referees in the Bills and Jets game had more yards than you. That should be the new bar at this point. It wasn't even a bad game from Tyron Tracy, but you mustered up 7 points against the worst defense in football. Pathetic, Giants. Good God. I knew somebody was going to be on this list. The Giants, they're back. Number 2, how about a team that is stapled to the worst top 5 and will forever be stapled here because you traded for a serial rapist? The Browns. They have not scored over 20 points this year. Here's a list of teams who have not scored more than 20 points this year in every single game. The Cleveland Browns. That's the end of the list. They're the only team in football that has not scored more than 20 points. Good God. They also have the worst third down conversion in all of football. You want to know how well they've done the last 32 third down conversions? You and I have as many third down conversions over the last 32 attempts as the Browns do. 0 for 32. Good God. Good news is you can get out of this Deshaun Watson contract pretty easily. Oh, wait, no, you can't. $150 million dead cap money next year. Goodbye, Nick Chubb. Goodbye, Myles Garrett. Goodbye, Jerry Jeudy. Goodbye, literally your entire team and Deshaun Watson. If you want to break up with them, the Browns back to being who the Browns are. And for my number 1 team, it's important that we talk about these boys because, good God, there's nothing worse than having a worse team than a team that breaks the hearts of their fans consistently. And if there's one team, whether it would be a team like the Chargers or the Lions of old, heartbreak. We never want to see heartbreak on this show. We're a fan of love. This is a loving podcast, right? The Dallas Cowboys. It's time that we air it out. 9 points against the Lions, a team that you beat last year, according to the stat book. 37-point home loss. Worst in the Jerry Jones era. Jerry Jones is now 82 years old. You can't be having those losses for a guy that old. I mean, good God. You want Stephen Jones taking over the helm? Good God. And this is a team, this is a fan base that is the worst fan base in all of sports, arguably. And even I have to say enough of the suffering for the Cowboys fans. Year in and year out, they have a great defense. They have a great offense. Dak Prescott, top 5 in the league. MVP votes for him last year. And they continuously tear the hearts of their fans out of their chest each and every year. The biggest letdowns, the biggest chokers, biggest, most pathetic franchise over the last 30 years. Haven't won a playoff game since you and I didn't even exist. We were just a twinkle in our dad's eyes the last time they were relevant, for real. Dallas Cowboys, this week, you are the worst team according to the Brickyard.
Amazing. Yeah, worse than the Cleveland Browns this week. What a feat, Dallas, and they definitely deserve it there. And yeah, the honorable mention of Daniel Jones not throwing a home touchdown since Barbenheimer is absolutely insane. I don't think people realize how much people suck, and we've given Daniel Jones kind of a pass this season, and then people have talked about, oh, he's actually playing pretty good. Like, no, Daniel Jones has not been playing good this season, so glad you pointed that out. Another fantastic worst top 5 this week. And then most importantly, yeah, we went over the worst top 5 real quick. Should we recap the bye week before we say goodbye to people?
Let's see. How did everybody do?
How did everyone do versus the bye week?
Chiefs bye week.
Chiefs
How'd they
won.
do? Yeah, Chiefs won. Two-time defending champions. They're doing just fine. They always beat the bye week. Sean McVay has a bye week. How did he do? Banged up a little bit.
He did okay. He did his best, but they still lost. Even though, they ate a lot of Campbell soup, but just wasn't enough to get healthy this bye week. And then the Vikings, they stayed undefeated. It was a solid bye week, but again, start to fall apart a little bit, but they were able to squeak out another win, keep a clean record here.
And then the Dolphins. The Dolphins, the first team to lose to the bye week, scoring 0 points. Tyreek Hill begging to leave the city of Miami. Good God, that was a terrible bye week to be played. Maybe they bounce back next week against real competition, but I'm not so sold.
I'm not sold either. But yeah, that was their recap of the bye week. The greatest, worst top 5. The reason why you turn into the show. One of the greatest, the best. Actually, this is the best week 6 recap that is out there on the internet. I have no doubt. find another one that is better, and I will prove you wrong. And there's plenty to talk about on our preview tomorrow, and we will be back with the heat here. But most importantly,
Stay brick.
stay brick.